introduction, and Jacob, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be asked to kick off this terrific conference. And I have to say to all of you that you must already be enlightened to be able to sit through the 20 minutes of planning, so maybe I shouldn't say anything. But I'll try to add a little bit. And it's an honor to work with you. I love what you do with creative online learning, and certainly we share a common ancestral source, wellspring of inspiration in the tradition, and that will become clearer as I speak. So let me just say a few words about the word radical. Great word, right? What does radical mean? So I was thinking, well, was that sort of like putting a bomb in the office of the AMA, or up in somewhere one of the new buildings where they're building for Columbia, where they get kicked out the people of Harlem? Or, well, I mean, the bottom line is that we don't need a bomb, because there's a time bomb already in the heart of Western medicine, and it's self-destructive, right? You can see it in Congress, you can see it wherever we go. I just one of my clients just a few minutes ago was telling me he was waiting 3.5 hours for a 3-minute appointment with his surgeon. So something's drastically wrong, and we all know it. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my take on that and my experience with that, which started quite a while ago and has become sort of more and more part of a larger cultural movement. So first of all, we'll talk a little bit about ancient history, because I love ancient history, but just trying to put the current notion of radical therapies, or really the confluence of East and West, of traditional healthcare, traditional healing with modern scientific understandings and technologies. I'm going to talk a little bit about current science and try to weave in from the other, from our own cultural, scientific point of view, the transformation, the new science, the shift in paradigms that's kind of turning around to meet the ancient traditions. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about integration and our work and our latest book, which Jacob's doing a beautiful online review of, Advances in Contemplative Psychotherapy, which kind of talks about my particular niche, and that's really trying to bring the full breadth of the contemplative traditions into dialogue with different kinds of psychotherapy and psychological healing practices. So, history, number one. So radical, fortunately for us, has another meaning which is a little less controversial, that's also less well known, which is going to the root of things, right? And so what would it mean to have therapies that start from the root of things, right? And when I was trained in medical school, I went, sat in sort of much less interesting room than this for hours and hours watching ridiculous slide presentations, reducing everything to molecules. Okay? And so everything was thought, and I was taught, and most of my colleagues still believe, in practice most people still believe, that if we go down to the molecules of things, then we somehow have the secret knowledge and the secret control over everything. And that's the genome, the DNA project, the decoding the human genome is an expression of that. The understanding of tissue pathology, finding what's wrong in the body at the moment. This is the basis of modern Western science, or modern Western medicine. Now, what's happening, that's in stark contrast to traditional healthcare, right? So what does traditional healthcare mean by going to the root of things? So traditional healthcare, the root of things is really understanding that life is a delicate balance. And it's a delicate balance between mind and body, the individual organism and the environment, between all the factors that support life, diet, behavior, mindset, lifestyle. It's all seen as a web, sort of, right? And the root of illness is disturbing that web, or not understanding how to care for it, right? And hence the root of healing is learning how to understand and be in greater tune with that complex web that we live in. So when I was training, of course, that kind of medicine, which we know in the West as well, through our Hippocratic and Galenic medical traditions, we know that that's quackery. with the leeches and bleeding and all of this kind of thing, all these horrible, primitive things that our superstitious ancestors did. Well, as it turns out, actually, the kind of traditional healthcare that is practiced in the West is very similar to the kind that was practiced in India, China, and was integrated for the first time in history in Tibetan medicine. I'll talk to you a little bit about Tibetan medicine. So, but the bottom line is I was told, and of course I didn't really believe that, that was to be thrown out. Now, why didn't I believe that? I'm, sort of naive, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I exactly wasn't an enthusiastic medical student because I had gone there with a secret purpose. We'll talk about that, maybe radical purpose. But I knew the argument from my home. Okay, so my parents were Catholic, Italian Catholic parents, not so hard to guess. But they sort of took different routes in life. My dad sort of drifted away from his heritage and from the way he was trained, both with a kind of contemplative, spiritual background, but also philosophically in the Jesuit tradition. My mom, on the other hand, who was actually raised in Sicily, stayed much more close to those roots. She continued to be sort of devout and had a strong sense of faith that motivated her. Even though she didn't talk about it, she didn't make us do anything. But he was the sort of modernist, saying it's all bunk, and he sort of decided to become a psychiatrist, or he really wanted to be a real doctor. but anyway, maybe he wasn't suited for it. He did have some priest genes anyway, so he wound up being a psychotherapist instead. So this whole notion of the ancient and the modern, and how the modern is dismissive of the ancient. And yet, you see, I had this little controlled experiment in my home laboratory, which is I saw how the two of them did. This is like a small outcome study. And the reality is, over time, he had more and more stress, even though he got the profession he wanted, he got the life he wanted, he got everything he wanted, but he wasn't happy. And in fact, he really burned out, and eventually really, I think, lost some of his life, his zest along the way, right? No more, he threw out his accordion and everything else. Right? My mom, on the other hand, sort of just got better with age. She got more peaceful, more present, less anxious, more related, more joyful, more loving, and she shared that with her growing family. And I said, well, I want some of that, right? So I tried to think of myself. I was sitting there in the office, my father's office. I would sneak in and try to read the books on the shelves, and that was my beginning education in the world, the larger world around. Dads are supposed to do that. And there are a couple of things that really grabbed my attention. One was Freud, the civilization of discontents. And he propounded the very sort of unmodern and really relatively unscientific proposition at that time that civilization is a struggle not for survival, but it's a struggle between forces of love and the forces of stress or death, the destructive instincts inside us. Well, that's really caught my attention, right? Because there was something intuitively appealing about that. But I had to sort of read on and get to Jung, who started talking about the solution, really, which is the idea of integrating, using psychotherapy, which actually really is kind of in-between tradition. It's neither modern nor ancient. It draws on ancient roots, and yet it's sort of secret. It's like a secret. It's a spy, a plant in Western medicine, because it doesn't really do anything. You just sit there talking to people and trying to help them understand and live better, right? That's Aristotle. That's the old folks. But Jung really suggested we take even a step further, that we don't just talk to people, we actually help give them tools. We integrate contemplative practices like imagery and yoga and meditation. And then, of course, I also was, being my father, being well educated as a Catholic, I ran into Thomas Merton and his notion of contemplation in the world of action. Right? And the whole idea that contemplation doesn't have to be done. That there is this split, and the modern West has sort of thrown the baby out with the bathwater, contemplation and ethics, and now what we have now is knowledge and power. Right? We don't have anymore the heart disciplines that train our integrity or human character. And how does that apply to medicine? Well, soon I started, when I began my medical training, thinking, okay, so I went to college first, to get through college. Ran into Bob Thurman, right? Bob Thurman, one of the first, I think the first Western Tibetan monk, who was quite a character, with his flowery tie, his one glass eye, and wild hair. And he started talking about Tibetan Buddhism. And instantly I was like, oh, you mean there is a culture left on this planet where scientific thinking, critical thinking, philosophy is woven together with psychology, contemplation, ethics? Wow. I mean, so it's not hopeless. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, I thought to myself. Isn't this great? So I spent the rest of my time studying at college and sort of cheating the core requirements. There were no core requirements, fortunately, at that time. So I spent pretty much the rest of my time at college studying with Bob. And nobody knew about him, he was unknown, so it was easy to do. Really felt more and more deeply committed to taking the path of trying to integrate this ancient healing tradition and had some of the elements of psychotherapy, some of the understanding of the importance of introspection, dialogue, healing attitude, and integrating that into mind sense, grafting it onto this new shoot of psychotherapy. So, of course, I found myself pretty soon in medical school and learned that all that was quackery, and in fact, I shouldn't even be a therapist because that's just, empathy is going to make me weak and ineffectual, and a bad doctor because I won't really maintain my objectivity if I care about my patients. These are the kinds of things I was taught, and no wonder why my clients spent 3.5 hours waiting for the doctor, right? How did this happen? I started to ask myself, as I looked at the medical curriculum and I saw all the molecules and no people. Spent 4 years, no people. Even in the psychiatry class, no mind. No life, no people, no mind, just molecules and cells, all sick, right? That's what passes for healthcare, right? Training in healthcare. And so really it's sick care, right? Or whatever, sick tinkering. Waiting for things to break down so that you can fix them, right? Like some of my students at Columbia used to wear t-shirts that said, we're the mechanics of the human body. As if that's really what, the claim to fame somehow. And of course, we all need mechanics, but it's not a machine after all, is it, right? It has roots. It's a living thing. So I started to get a little despairing. The more I got into my profession in medicine, the more I thought, well, there's just no way to put Humpty Dumpty back together. The East is East and West is West. So that leads me to part 2, right, which is science. And somehow, miraculously, over the years, while I was busy giving up on this wild quest to do something or other, to heal Western medicine or bring something into Western culture that had been lost, my enthusiasm didn't change much, but it turned out the world changed around me, right? And one of the reasons was because, very happily, I wasn't alone. There were a lot of other sort of, freaks, weirdos, radicals, whatever you want to call us. It's like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where all the people who saw the mountain, suddenly have to find their way to come together, right, and see the landing, right? So there were other people that were on a mission and doing things to integrate these ancient contemplative traditions in their own ways, like people like John Kabat-Zinn, Mark Epstein, and so on. But I also underestimated the curiosity and the genius of modern science, the resilience of modern science, because, as I sort of waited them out, my colleagues in the hard sciences started to rethink the whole paradigm, the whole molecular-based sort of billiard ball thing that our friends back in the Galileo and Newton and so on cooked up in the 15th and whatever, 16th or 17th century, and the whole notion of life that Darwin developed, this sort of struggle for survival, right? The dog-eat-dog kind of struggle of each individual organism to preserve their selfish genes, right? And all of this understanding of the brain is like a hardwired, like a little circuit, a closed circuit, hardwired in childhood, and that's you're stuck with it. So all of these views, increasingly started to shift. This is the very bedrock of the science that I went to medical school. It started to shift not long after I got out, and it's been shifting ever since. And how's it been shifting? Well, we now think of matter and nature as wave-like, and as an open, dynamic system, and where everything is fluidly interconnected. We think of life and evolution. So I was just in India listening to a conference with his Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and it's amazing biologists. They're talking about this new vision of biology as the survival of the most cooperative, right? Totally the opposite of what we were trained. Then you get the neuroplasticity. Up at Columbia, one of my colleagues, Eric Kandel, got the Nobel Prize in 2000 for discovering that mollusks learn, right? Little shellfish creatures learn to stay away or go near what's good for them. And when they do, their nerves change. So their nerves are not hardwired. They're always evolving. And we all know about neuroplasticity right by now, correct? Yes, I see head shaking. And we also learn that we're not alone, that development, the brain is developed in the matrix of the loving, healthy interconnection, or a healthy attachment, we call it, between mother and child. And this limbic resonance, this sort of emotional brain, is constantly in dialogue with another brain, with another nervous system. It's almost as if really the only way we can be a healthy nervous system is if we're not alone, and where really our nervous system is totally bathed in the environment of the love and care of the other, the mother. So that's different. And so we're learning about the transformability of human nature, of the brain. We're learning about the fundamental importance of love and care, right? So, the fact is that the people who live longest, happiest, healthiest are the people who love the most, right? So what we're really rediscovering is something everybody's known forever.